So, imagine the person who frustrates you the absolute most in your life right now. Like maybe it's a toxic boss or a passive-aggressive neighbor
Right.
or just a family member who, knows exactly which buttons to
Oh,
push.
yeah, we all definitely have one of those.
Exactly. And usually when we encounter someone like that, there's this very comforting sense of distance. Like you're over there being a jerk and I am over here being a victim of your jerkiness.
It's clean, it's, very neatly categorized.
Right. Solid, impenetrable wall between me and the problem. But what if I told you that person is essentially a character in a waking dream and you are the one unconsciously holding their script?
I mean, it's the absolute definition of a paradigm shift. If you really, engage with this idea, it completely short-circuits our entire concept of blame and victimhood.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the mission of our deep dive today is to explore this really dense, truly fascinating manuscript we've been reviewing.
Yeah, it's a document that sits right at the intersection of depth psychology and somatic therapy.
In consciousness studies, too, it provides this step-by-step framework for processing external chaos and corruption by doing deeply internal work.
But right out of the gate, we need to be crystal clear for everyone listening. This is not about blaming yourself for the bad things that happen to you.
Oh, absolutely not. It's about learning a radically different, uh, highly mechanical way to navigate conflict.
Right. It takes the esoteric, it makes it almost like an engineering manual.
Hmm.
The core premise here is that the waking world is shaped by our consciousness exactly the same way a dream at night is shaped by our subconscious.
Which, I mean, that is a really heavy concept to digest.
It is, but think about it practically. When you're asleep and a monster chases you in a dream, you don't assume a literal monster travels from another dimension to break into your bedroom.
No, obviously not.
Right. You understand intuitively that your own mind is generating the monster, the sensation of fear, the dark forest all at once.
So you're saying waking reality functions on that exact same structural mechanism?
Exactly. What appears outside of you isn't objectively fixed. It's dynamically stabilized by what you are holding and feeding and reinforcing within your own awareness.
See, that immediately makes me think of encountering genuine harm in the real world. Because I have to raise a massive red flag here on behalf of anyone listening who has dealt with truly awful, abusive situations.
Yeah, that's so important.
It's like if I encountered a manipulative partner or someone actively trying to ruin my career, is this material saying I caused it? Like, did my bad vibes conjure this toxic person into existence?
I am so glad you brought that up right away because the author is incredibly firm on this point. Absolutely not.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the source material explicitly states, and I'll quote the exact phrasing here because it's vital, this does not mean you caused it, agree with it, or should remain in contact with it. You didn't, magically summon a toxic boss out of the ether.
Thank goodness. Because that brand of toxic positivity, like the whole you attracted this abuse narrative, can be incredibly damaging.
Precisely. It's
Yeah.
a really dangerous trap. But here is the crucial caveat the framework introduces.
Yep.
If you perceive a pattern in someone else, let's stick with the toxic boss, and it triggers confusion, contraction, emotional disturbance, or like an obsessive thought loop in you.
Basically, if it really gets under my skin.
Yes, if it gets under your skin, it means you have an internal structure capable of interfacing with that pattern.
Interesting.
The boss is just doing what the boss is doing.
Yeah.
But your internal disturbance, that belongs to you. And that internal structure is where the actual work happens.
So the external trigger is just like highlighting the internal interface. I think I have an analogy for this.
Let's hear it.
It's like having a perfectly tuned radio. The radio station is broadcasting absolute garbage, right? That's the toxic boss.
Right, right.
You didn't create the station, and you aren't responsible for the garbage they're playing. But if your radio is picking up the signal and blasting it through your living room, it means you have an antenna tuned to that exact frequency.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the mechanism of resonance. And that actually brings us to the concept of avoidance.
Because the text says avoiding corruption externally is just baseline intelligence, right?
Exactly. It stops the immediate reinforcement loop. If the radio station is broadcasting garbage, turning off the radio or leaving the room makes complete sense.
Just quit the job, block the number, walk away, move to a new city. But then the author argues that avoidance alone is entirely incomplete. Why is that? Haven't I solved the problem if I just walk away?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the framework addresses the deep psychology of denial.
Okay, how so?
You just walk away, but that internal resonance, that specific tuning of your antenna remains unexamined. The work isn't done.
Oh, I see.
The manuscript warns that labeling the issue as purely external allows the pattern to persist inside you in a fragmented state.
So it continues to exist as the other.
Yes. And because it's exiled as something separate from you, it can never be integrated or transformed.
It's the ultimate wherever you go, there you are scenario.
Exactly. You might leave the toxic boss, but you'll walk right into a toxic friendship. The internal interface is still active, just sitting there in the dark, waiting for a new signal to pick up.
Wow. Okay, so avoidance isn't enough. And obviously, obsessing over it and fighting, it just entangles you further. So let's put this into practice.
Let's do it.
Say I'm sitting at my desk, my boss just sent an email, taking credit for my work, my heart is pounding, my chest is tight, and I am furious. What is the literal first thing this framework tells me to do?
The golden rule of this entire process is, do not feed it through participation, but do not exile it from awareness either.
Do not feed, do not exile, which sounds simple, but goes against literally millions of years of evolutionary biology.
Oh, completely. Our biological instinct is either the fight response, which feeds the external threat with our energy, or the flight and freeze responses, which suppress and exile it into the subconscious.
So how do we actually do this? The instructions here are incredibly specific.
Very specific, yeah.
Step one is to isolate the internal experience. And the author emphasizes dropping the story and the justification completely.
You have to focus purely on the raw, physical, and energetic configuration.
Right. So for you listening, imagine doing this next time you're triggered. That email comes in. Don't think about what a jerk your boss is.
Don't start rehearsing that brilliant cutting reply in your head.
Exactly. Stop the narrative entirely.
Mhm.
What does it actually feel like in your physical body? Is it a tight knot in your stomach? Is it like a chaotic, hot buzzing in your chest? Is your throat suddenly restricted?
By doing that, you're removing the projection. You're no longer staring at the external screen of the movie theater. You've turned around and you're looking directly at the projector inside yourself.
And then comes step two, which the framework says is the most critical. Allow it fully without attempting to change it or fix it.
Right, just let it be there.
I have to be honest, that is incredibly difficult. If I feel a tight knot of panic or rage in my stomach, my immediate, overwhelming biological imperative is to make that feeling go away.
Oh, of course you want to.
I want to distract myself or vent to a coworker or send an angry email back just to, release the pressure valve.
But the manuscript explains exactly why, allowing it works structurally. We have to look at the psychology of suppression.
Okay.
Most internal distortions, these painful knots of anxiety or anger, only persist because they're constantly being resisted or suppressed by our conscious mind.
They need that friction to survive.
Exactly. Think about holding a beach ball underwater. It requires constant active energy to keep it submerged.
And the second you get tired, it rockets up and smacks you in the face.
Yes. But when you bring pure, unjudging awareness to that physical sensation, and you don't resist it, and you don't act on it, you stop feeding the conflict that sustains the distortion in your nervous system.
So pure awareness just interrupts the loop.
It interrupts both the neural loop of engagement and the neural loop of avoidance. The pattern begins to destabilize simply because it's being seen clearly without any reinforcement. You stop fighting the beach ball and it just floats harmlessly on the surface.
Okay, so let's say I've done that. I've isolated the raw feeling in pure awareness. The somatic panic has settled.
Right.
But my boss, who stole my work, still exists in the real world. So how do we then shift our perception of the actual corruption we are looking at out there?
This is where we move from managing our own nervous system to actually shifting how we relate to the external pattern. The material asks us to recognize the structure beneath the distortion.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the text points out that what appears as hostility or manipulation or harm in someone else is almost always a defense pattern.
Built on unresolved states like fear, fragmentation, loss, or deep confusion. Yeah.
Right. The author says the fallen or corrupted aspect isn't an original state, it's a deviation from coherence. Like nobody is born a manipulative, credit-stealing micromanager.
And that completely changes your angle of approach. Instead of engaging with this person as something inherently evil, you engage with it as something misaligned that is still part of a larger coherent system.
Which leads to the method of treating a hostile pattern like a destabilized child state.
Yes, structurally speaking.
Okay, hold on. I need to push back on this on behalf of the listener. If someone is actively sabotaging my career, or trying to undermine me, treating them like a toddler feels incredibly dismissive of the real threat they pose.
It's a vital question.
Like, doesn't this just make me a passive doormat? This person isn't throwing toys, they're messing with my livelihood.
The material is very careful to clarify this. It isn't about sentimental pity. We aren't infantilizing the person or making excuses for them like, oh, poor baby, they had a tough childhood, so I'll let them walk all over me.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's structural containment, not sentimental enabling.
What does structural containment look like in practice?
Think of a child throwing a violent tantrum in a grocery store. The child is operating from pure fragmentation. They're overwhelmed. What they require is firm containment without violent suppression. The framework outlines 4 very specific rules for this kind of containment when dealing with a hostile adult pattern. Number 1, it is allowed to exist in your awareness. You don't deny it's happening.
Right, no gaslighting yourself.
Number 2, it is not allowed to act outwardly through you. Number 3, it is not rejected. And number 4, it is not fed.
So, applied to the boss sabotaging me, I see the hostility clearly. I allow the reality of it to exist in my awareness without pretending everything is fine.
Exactly.
But I don't let it act outwardly through me, meaning I don't compromise my own integrity to snap back at them. I don't reject their fundamental humanity, but I absolutely do not feed the drama by engaging with their hostile game.
You just become a stable, unyielding field.
And this leads into the angel framework the manuscript mentions, which is so fascinating because it requires holding a very difficult duality.
It's a profound mental posture. The angel framework demands that you hold 2 truths simultaneously, which is something the human brain typically hates doing. We prefer things to be black and white. Good guy, bad guy.
Exactly. But this framework demands that you recognize the pattern is distorted and unacceptable in its current form.
Meaning you do not validate or permit the harmful behavior.
Right. But you interact with it knowing its original underlying blueprint is pure and merely obscured. If you only see the distortion, you just reinforce the distortion. You're just fighting a monster.
And if you only see the purity, you bypass the reality of the harm and end up being that doormat we talked about.
So how do we balance that?
To give a structural analogy, it's like looking at a piece of vital computer software that's been infected with a virus and is acting maliciously.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
You don't validate the virus. You don't pretend the computer isn't crashing. But you also recognize that underneath that corrupted, malicious code, it's fundamentally made of the same basic programming language as every helpful app on your computer.
That makes so much sense. You isolate the virus, but you don't throw the whole computer into a wood chipper.
Exactly. You see the corrupted code, and you hold the vision of the pristine operating system underneath it.
And by holding both, you allow transformation without reinforcement.
Right? You maintain your own stable, non-reactive state. And you provide a field where that pattern can begin to reorganize itself. A corrupted system cannot maintain its distorted structure forever when it's constantly met with unyielding, non-reactive coherence.
So what does this all mean for the macro level of our lives? Because this is fascinating on an internal psychological level. It helps me regulate my nervous system and navigate a bad day at work.
Sure.
But the manuscript takes this a massive leap further into what it calls reality shifting. How does fixing my internal software and viewing my boss as a corrupted file actually change the external network of my life?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to circle all the way back to the premise we started with, the waking dream. What you are currently calling reality is just the field that your awareness is currently stabilized in.
So shifting reality isn't about like magic or forcing a belief.
Not at all. It's not about standing in front of a mirror and aggressively chanting affirmations about wealth or peace until you somehow trick the universe.
Which is such a relief because that never works anyway.
Right. Because reality shifting is about physics and resonance. It's about stabilizing your nervous system and your awareness into a completely different configuration of being.
The internal healing process we just walked through, like isolating the trigger, allowing the somatic feeling, not feeding or exiling it, and reality shifting are actually the exact same process, just operating at different scales.
One removes the corrupted code in the immediate moment, and the other installs a completely new operating system for your life.
But the author puts up a massive flashing warning sign here about something called oscillation.
Yes, the danger of oscillation. If you try to aggressively force a shift in your external reality, say, you decide you're going to manifest a peaceful, drama-free life, but you don't integrate those internal distortions first.
You're going to bounce back and forth violently.
Exactly. You'll force a week of absolute peace through sheer willpower, and then you'll have a massive chaotic blow-up that ruins everything.
It's basically yo-yo dieting for the soul.
That's exactly what it is.
You try to force a change in your eating habits through sheer white-knuckled willpower without ever addressing the underlying emotional relationship you have to the food or the somatic anxiety that drives you to eat.
And so, inevitably, your willpower batteries run out, the rubber band snaps back, and you're right back where you started.
Because the unintegrated internal structures are still there, actively conflicting with the new reality you're trying to force on top of them.
And they will constantly pull your awareness back to the old, familiar pattern. On the flip side, the material notes that if you manage to integrate everything internally, but you never actually expand your awareness or take new actions,
You remain stable but extremely limited.
you become very zen, very peaceful, sitting alone in a quiet room, but your world stays very small.
Which is why true transformation requires both the internal unhooking and the external expansion. And the author gives us the ultimate formula for this, synthesizing everything we've just discussed into a very clear process.
Let's hear it.
First, do not chase external change. Stop trying to force the outside world to comply. Second, do not fight external distortion. Stop wrestling with the pigs.
Third, use those external triggers purely as diagnostic indicators of your own internal tuning.
Fourth, process those patterns fully within your awareness using that do not feed, do not exile somatic method. And finally, stabilize your awareness in the new frequency you actually want to experience.
When you do that, the framework suggests that reality literally reorganizes itself around you. Not because you forced it to bend to your will, but simply because your internal awareness is no longer mathematically aligned with the old structure.
Going back to your earlier analogy, you fundamentally changed the frequency of your internal radio. The old toxic station literally cannot be broadcast in your living room anymore because the equipment to receive it no longer exists.
The old pattern relies entirely on your engagement or your avoidance to survive in your field.
When you replace both of those reactions with pure, unyielding awareness, the old pattern essentially starves to death, and a new, more coherent reality naturally rushes in to take its place.
It's a masterclass in retaining your own sovereign energy.
This has been a massive, deeply mechanical journey today.
Yeah,
Let's just do a quick recap for everyone listening so we have the practical takeaways.
good idea.
The fundamental rule of this framework: external reality operates like a mirror of your internal stabilizing field. When you encounter corruption, chaos, or a genuinely malicious person, your first instinct should not be to run away, and it should not be to fight them.
Your first move is to turn completely inward. Isolate how that exact trigger feels in the physical tissue of your body. Allow it to be there completely without trying to change it, suppress it, or act on it.
Then look back out at the external situation and structurally contain it. Treat it like a destabilized, fragmented system. Don't feed it with your drama, but don't reject the reality of it.
And finally, use that angel framework to recognize the original, pure, coherent code buried beneath the malicious virus.
And it leaves us with the manuscript's ultimate core principle. It's a thought that perfectly encapsulates the entire engineering of this framework. Everything you encounter is either being reinforced, avoided, or integrated within your awareness. Only integration transforms it.
Only integration transforms it. That is the phrase to write on a Post-it note and stick on your bathroom mirror.
Because we spend almost our entire lives bouncing exhaustingly between reinforcing the drama by fighting it or running away from it in denial.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture one last time, think about what happens when we scale this up beyond the individual.
What do you mean?
If individual people operate from these unintegrated, fragmented states, projecting their own internal distortions outward, what happens when entire societies or nations do the same thing?
Oh, wow.
We look at global conflicts, geopolitics, entire cultures operating from a destabilized child state, projecting their collective shadow onto other countries. They fight the external enemy, never realizing they are just warring with their own unintegrated reflections.
The implications for collective healing are staggering if we actually applied this mechanism at scale.
Staggering, yeah.
That is a wildly profound thought to end on. It changes how you watch the evening news entirely. So I want to leave you with a direct question to take into your day.
Go for it.
Think about the single biggest external frustration in your life right now. That person, that situation, that recurring problem that just makes your blood boil. Look at it honestly. Are you currently reinforcing it by constantly fighting it?
Or are you avoiding it by pretending it doesn't bother you?
Or after today, are you finally ready to look at the raw physical sensation it causes inside of you, drop the story you've built around it, and actually integrate it?
Because the moment you integrate it, the mirror has nothing left to reflect.
And suddenly, that solid, comforting wall between me and the problem isn't there anymore. But maybe that wall was just an illusion keeping you stuck in the first place. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a deep breath, feel the ground under your feet, and we will catch you next time.